Thank you. Bruce, any comments?
You asked me to provide order to the Trump administration, which is a tall request. I'll begin by complimenting my colleagues at the FBI. We now have a crossfire hurricane in the Middle East and an American administration which is pouring jet oil on top of it. It's not just violating the JCPOA, it's moving the embassy, and it's a variety of other things. I don't think there is a lot of order here. My analysis of the Trump administration is that its first priority is to undo everything that Barack Obama did, and its second priority, which is not surprising, is to get reelected in 2020. In that sense, it's a normal administration, but it's pursuing it in a somewhat different way than most administrations do. Most administrations try to broaden their base as they go for re-election. This administration seems only interested in deepening its existing base and hoping that voter turnout will get them through. The other thing that's very difficult, of course, is that this administration has a complex variety of voices. We've talked about John Bolton, John Kelly, the two advisors closest to the president, I think are pretty hardline on Iran. I don't think there's any question about that. Others are also hardline on Iran, Secretary Mattis, for example, but much more cautious about how to implement that, much more aware of the pitfalls of implementing a confrontational approach with Iran. The bottom line on all of this is I don't think it's very easy to project a simple line of policy pursuit. What I think you're going to see is that the avalanche continues, that having gone down this part of the road, the Iranians will respond, the administration will respond further, and we could very easily find ourselves in a military confrontation at some point in the future. Short of that, we're going to find ourselves in an increasingly difficult situation in many parts of the Middle East where we overlap with the Iranians, the best example being Iraq. Since 2014 or so, the United States and Iran have been partners in stabilizing the situation in Iraq. Neither Washington nor Tehran ever wants to say that, and we certainly don't want any pictures of CENTCOM commanders sitting down with Suleiman Qasem and debating which function are we going to give arms to. But in practice, we've been doing that. It's going to be harder and harder to do that in the future. Similarly, in Afghanistan, we, for the better part of 2 decades, have worked together to solidify the central government in Afghanistan. We've now seen that broken down over the last couple of years. And the attack in Farah province over the last week is a dramatic example of how we've broken down. The last thing I would say on all of this is, if you step back and look at the rise of the Islamic Republic to being the regional, I wouldn't say hegemon, but to being this very prominent player in the region, from Lebanon to Syria to Iraq to Yemen, to the famous 4 capitals of the Sunni Arab world, which are now under the control of Iran, which is an exaggeration. But if you look at that rise, it really occurred for 2 reasons. First, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982, which brought the Revolutionary Guards to Baalbek and to Syria. And second, the American invasion of Iraq in 2003, which brought the Iranians into Baghdad. It's been self-enforced errors, own goals, that have been the principal mechanism by which Iran has become a regional hegemon. That's not to say the Iranians haven't played their cards very well. They've been very, very clever, and they have very, very good cards as intelligence and espionage and subversive organization. The Iranians are really in a class of their own. But it wasn't that got them where they are. It was the openings that we have made for them, which makes the Trump administration so dangerous to think about. What openings are we going to give them in the pursuit of what we think is a tough, hardline policy towards Iran? The odds of counterproductive behavior are very, very high here. We've already seen it in our relationship with our European allies, which we've talked about already. What other things will happen, which in the long run we think are going to stick it to the Iranians and end up sticking it to ourselves.
Thank you.